Hello, I'm Jon Delano, KDKA-TV political editor. Thanks for joining us for Inside Pennsylvania Politics. We're now less than a month away from Election Day. I'm joined by our panel. They are young, politically active Pennsylvanians from diverse backgrounds and opinions. I'm the only old guy here, which makes sense because elections are really about the future. Joining us on the right side of our panel, David Gehring, Banksville Republican and member of the Allegheny County Young Republicans, and Aaron Koper, Elliott Republican and president of the Allegheny County Council of Republican Women. And joining us on the left side of our panel, Shelley Pikelick, Mount Lebanon Democrat and mom of 5, and Patrick Francis, Shadyside Democrat, University of Pittsburgh law student and member of the College Democrats. We're going to start this week with mail-in ballots. After a flurry of lawsuits and appeals going up to the state Supreme Court, the justices have ruled and said it's just too close to the election to make any calls, with one exception. They're done hearing cases about mail-in ballots. The decisions over which ballots are and aren't counted are critical because this year's election could hinge on just a few thousand votes. Traditionally, elections in Pennsylvania have been run by each of the 67 counties. That has led to wide variation in rules, especially when it comes to mail-in ballots.
And how you give notice to people, how much you help them, when you send out the ballots, whether you have drop boxes. There's just a lot of latitude for counties to play around there.
That latitude, says ACLU legal director Vic Walczak, has led to voters who vote by mail being treated differently depending on where they live. And that has led to court cases over whether counties should tell their voters if they have made a mistake and allow them to cure or correct their errors.
If you forget to put your ballot in the secrecy envelope, or you forget to sign the declaration envelope, or you forget to put the date on the declaration envelope, your ballot will not count.
Unless you correct your mail-in ballot, which you cannot do unless you know you made a mistake and your county lets you fix the error, thousands of eligible voters will not have their votes counted. Right now across Pennsylvania, at least 44 of the 67 counties will tell you of your mistake and allow you to correct. In this region, some counties do alert their voters, but not all. Clarion, Jefferson, Indiana, Mercer, and Westmoreland counties do not. And Washington County is in litigation over the issue. On Saturday, the state Supreme Court said it would not consider two cases. One from voting rights groups that asked the court to rule that a correctly dated mail-in ballot wasn't necessary if the ballot was received on time. And another case from the Republican Party that asked the court to rule that all counties should be barred from alerting and allowing voters to correct their mistakes.
The data shows that it is disproportionately senior citizens who are making those mistakes.
The state Supreme Court, however, did agree to hear the Washington County case, in which the Republican county commissioners reversed the past practice of alerting mail-in voters to mistakes, and instead will no longer tell voters their ballots won't be counted. These mail-in ballot court cases are key, say political experts, when elections are close.
How many voters are going to be disenfranchised in the election? And right now it's easily going to be upwards of 10,000, and that's a lot of voters.
The outcome of this election could hinge on whether or not votes are counted, legitimate votes are counted or not counted.
Yeah, I mean, mail ballots could potentially be the hanging chads in Florida of 2000.
Let's hope it does not come down to that. With counties left with a hodgepodge of rules for ballot curing, do we run the risk of an unequal election where some voters are more likely to have their vote counted than others just because of where they live? Are some voters going to be disenfranchised? Dave, let's start with you. What is your thoughts about this?
I'm not sure what my party stance is, but I'm going to go nonpartisan here, and I'm going to say it's not right versus left, it's right versus wrong. What we really want, the main goal here, I think, is to be consistent and simple as far as these mail-in ballots. And if we want people to adopt these and we want people to trust the process, we all need to get on board, because if we as a state put out information, everyone in that state is going to have that information, you know, as a group. They're not going to say, oh, well, my county doesn't do this and my county doesn't do that. I think really this is something, you know, that's really big about election integrity, and I think that it should be the same throughout.
Shelley, what do you think?
I agree with Dave entirely. So let's, you know, mark that down. We're on the same page here. Why shouldn't this be easy, simple, consistent for all Pennsylvanians? It doesn't make sense for people to have to hunt and peck for the information for it to, you know, some rules to apply in one county and differently in one county over. We want people to be able to vote, for their votes to be secure, and for this process to be reliable.
Well, let's add to that, and we'll go to you, Patrick. Should counties tell voters when they make a mistake with their mail-in ballot so they can cure it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think of my mother in York, where that was one of the counties that was just on the map, saying that if she makes an error on her mail-in, then they just won't tell her, and then her vote doesn't count. That makes no sense to me whatsoever. I mean, when you go to vote in person, you'll have, if there's an error, the machines will then tell you if you've made a mistake, and then you have poll workers there to assist you in the process. So the idea that you can just send in a ballot thinking that you've done everything right, just to then have it not even be counted at all with no warning, like that's insane to me.
What do you think, Erin? Do you agree?
Well, I think everyone made really great points, and I see everybody's point, but I also want to throw this out there just so everyone can kind of look at things more objectively, is that there are a clear list of instructions on the ballots, and when people who do need assistance, whether if it's an elderly person, and it was saying that it was the data shows it's a lot of elderly people with the mistakes, they can have someone help them vote, and they can have their signature on there that shows that they had a helper. So again, I mean, these are just things that are in place to help people get their vote in the correct way.
But in terms of alerting people that they made a mistake, what's your view on that?
As I said, I think that they've all made great points, and I've actually been in the process of alerting a county, which was Washington County in 2022. So I was one of those people, and I've had to do it, and I see it both ways. You know, I think that people do have a right to change a mistake, but I also think that we do give them the chance to do it the right way. So.
All right, great. Well, thanks. Good discussion on that. In the days since Hurricane Helene hit the southern U.S., federal agencies like FEMA have been forced to deal with a flood of misinformation at the same time as they're scrambling to help people recover from actual floodwaters. Among other things, CBS News reports former President Trump has falsely claimed at least 15 times that FEMA could not appropriately respond to the storm because it had diverted money to helping migrants or was withholding aid to Republican disaster victims. That is patently untrue. Let's take a listen.
$1 billion was stolen from FEMA to use it for illegal migrants, many of whom are criminals, to come into our country. And FEMA's now busted. They don't have any money.
Elon Musk, the owner of X, who is endorsed in his campaigning for Trump, has also spread false information about the FEMA response to some 200 million followers, and misinformation has proliferated around social media. Some emergency responders in North Carolina say their efforts have been wasted responding to places where photos of people in need of help turned out to be fake and generated by artificial intelligence. On Monday, Vice President Harris spoke to reporters and condemned the misinformation, saying it's putting lives at risk.
There's a lot of mis and disinformation being pushed out there by the former president about what is available, in particular to the survivors of Helene. And first of all, it's extraordinarily irresponsible. It's about him, it's not about you. And the reality is that FEMA has so many resources that are available to folks who desperately need them.
On Tuesday, the head of FEMA told reporters the misinformation around the hurricane is, quote, absolutely the worst I've ever seen and is creating distrust in local and federal governments. So what benefit is there in politicians and regular people spreading misinformation about hurricane responses? Should this send up red flags about what could potentially happen surrounding the 2024 election? Well, let me turn to our panel about this, because it is a serious question when it comes to misinformation. And, you know, we hear it, and let's admit we hear it on all sides, misinformation. But this is particularly egregious because it involves a lot of people's lives and property. What do you think's going on here? Why are these misstatements being made? Aaron, any thoughts?
Well, I have family that have been, luckily they're okay. I have a sister in North Carolina. My other sister lives in Florida. And from peoples whose families have been affected by this horrible, devastating tragedy of this weather, a lot of the people feel like the government has left them behind, though. And I will say that the $750 they feel has been a little bit of a slap in the face when they see billions of dollars going to wars that we're in. So that's...
Well, to be clear, the $750 was an initial payment. It's certainly not the total amount of money.
Okay, well, that's how these people that I've literally talked to...
They're perceiving it that way.
Yes,
yep.
So these are people I've talked to that are affected on the ground who feel that way.
Yep. Shelley, what do you think?
Well, I mean, I liked hearing Vice President Harris sort of make the distinction or discuss misinformation and disinformation, which are two different things, right? Disinformation is the intentional telling of lies, and that is what Donald Trump is doing right now. He is repeatedly giving false information to the American public about a tragedy that is affecting your family, human lives. People that are then repeating what he's saying. Your family is hearing, we're only going to get $750. Repeating that, that's misinformation. They have been misinformed by the former president. And it's a crying shame. There's no excuse for politicizing an event like this.
Is there some political value for engaging in disinformation, for lying? What's the political value in that, Dave?
Well, I'm going to push back first, and I'm going to say there's not disinformation going on.
Okay.
I know people that are down there, have been down there last week. FEMA is absolutely stopping people from going in there and helping. I've seen the stuff firsthand with people that I've FaceTimed down there. So I believe I've read the whole $750 thing. I understand that. I think the total amount you can get is like $23,000 or something like that. It's something in that ballpark. I've read that, and I understand. But let's not pretend that the press secretary hasn't spoken, virtue signaling, of course, like they always do, and talked about how they've diverted money from FEMA to helping illegals for the past 3 years. Let's not pretend like that's not happening, because we can dub that in any time.
Well, my understanding is that there's separate programs that deal with undocumented illegal immigrants.
And you can move money from one bucket to another. And they've spoken about it multiple times at press secretary meetings at the White House.
But the director, the administrator of FEMA has made it clear, it seems to me, that they'll have the money that they need. And if they don't, they're going to go back to Congress and ask members of Congress. Patrick, you get the last word on this. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that when you look at the governors of these individual states, Roy Cooper in North Carolina, H.R. McMaster, I believe, is the governor of South Carolina, and then Ron DeSantis in Florida, they all have come forward and said, we have gotten everything that we've wanted from the federal government. We have no issue with the response. FEMA has not said that there's anything catastrophic or wrong that is happening in the response to Hurricane Helene. It's all coming from former President Trump. And it's pretty clear that the reason for this is to gain an electoral advantage in this upcoming election. But it's also notable that he himself used FEMA money to deport migrants when he was in office. So it's all political game playing, and I don't believe that it should be a partisan issue. And I'm actually quite happy with the responses from DeSantis and McMaster saying that it really isn't.
All righty, well, another lively discussion on an issue that is really up front. Thank you guys for talking about that. We're going to wrap up our discussion there. Coming up, we're taking a look at where the polls stand in Pennsylvania and across the country. Welcome back. I'm Jon Delano. The race for president may well come down to Pennsylvania, and so far it doesn't seem as if either Donald Trump or Kamala Harris has pulled into a lead in this state despite repeated visits to the Commonwealth. Taking a look at the current polls in Pennsylvania, the candidates remain in a statistical dead heat. The most recent poll of more than 500 likely voters in Pennsylvania by Redfield and Wilton Strategies shows Harris with 48%, Trump with 47%. 3% of Pennsylvanians said they're undecided. That poll was in the field from September 27th to October 2nd. Several of the most recent Pennsylvania polls were either conducted or sponsored by organizations, right-wing organizations, which isn't uncommon. Those are marked by an asterisk on this graphic. Again, we're looking at statistical ties across the board. And taking a look at the CBS News Battleground Tracker, as of September 30th, Pennsylvania is tied at 49 to 49. The 6 other battlegrounds also remain toss-ups, except for sole electoral vote in Nebraska's 2nd congressional district. That leans Harris. A new New York Times Siena poll out Tuesday shows Harris with a 3% lead among likely voters nationwide, just outside the margin of error. This poll has Harris at 49, Trump at 46, with a margin of error of plus or minus 2 points to 4 points. An interesting result. Voters are more likely to say that Harris represents change, despite her being the incumbent vice president. Let's turn now to our panel. Quick question. Why are we in a deadlock? Why has nothing changed? What do your candidates have to do in this race for president to make something happen that's not happening? Patrick?
I think we live in one of the swingingest of swing states in the entire country. I think it was always destined to be close. But then I sort of think back at the past few years of elections that we've had, with 2023 Daniel McCaffrey winning to the PA Supreme Court, Fetterman winning the Senate race, Shapiro winning the governorship. And I have a pretty good feeling that this race will actually be a wider margin than 2020 was, when I believe Biden won by 1.5-ish%.
80,000 plus votes.
Exactly. I think that it will be just a little bit wider than that, as the Philadelphia suburbs and southeastern PA get a little bit bluer.
You're one of those optimistic Democrats.
I'm always optimistic.
Dave, what do you think?
Oh, I think that we have seen a swing. I think Trump's going to clean up big time. We're out there hitting doors. A lot of these polls that you see, when they show that Trump and Harris are almost neck and neck, they're going and they're pulling D plus 25 districts. You have some that say Trump's way up. I don't think he's way up. You have some that say Harris is way up. I say Trump's up by a few points. We're killing them in voter registration. We're going all through the South Hills right now. We're doing Trump Force 47 doors. We're doing our regular Democrat doors.
Right.
And we are seeing many 45, I would say 40, 45 and older Democrats coming over, and they're voting down ballot with us right now. So I think Trump has a lock.
Shelley and Aaron, I didn't get to you, but I'm going to get to you when we come back. So stick with us. Coming up, the Senate race. Did the debate change anything, or are we still in a holding pattern in that race, too? What might it take to motivate voters on both sides? Coming up next. Welcome back. I'm Jon Delano with our panel of young political activists. Last week, incumbent Pennsylvania Senator Bob Casey took on Republican challenger Dave McCormick in a Senate debate. We've seen just one poll that includes a post-debate period in the field, but at just 400 likely voters in the sample, it's +6 Casey lead, but that may not be reliable. Are there many ticket splitters in Pennsylvania? What's going on here in this race between McCormick and Casey? Aaron, I'll start with you. What do you think? Is this a close race?
100% a close race, but we also have to remember that he's going to be outspent by $100 million. So,
McCormick is going to be outspent?
Yes, he's going to be outspent. However, we have a ground game, and we have a lot of the Gen Z vote. I know we discuss that regularly on this show, but a lot of the college Republicans, the young Gen Z, the independent voters are really coming out openly for McCormick. And I think in that debate, we saw I know Bob Casey is historically, this is his personality, and I know he might be a nice guy. However, he did not reach that gap of voters that McCormick, I think, did.
Good. Thank you, Aaron. Shelley, what do you think? Is younger voters, Aaron's suggesting, are voting for McCormick. I thought the abortion issue was a big deal.
I mean, it's a big deal to me, John. Yes, I think it certainly is a big deal for younger voters. I won't be surprised to see this very driven by whom people are coming out for as president. I mean, that's how it's going to go, right? And with the presidential race as close as it is, I think that's why we're seeing this Senate race as close as it is as well.
So it comes down to who wins the presidency.
I think it does. I mean, it's turnout, right? And you're turning out, I think, for those folks at the top of the ticket. And I think most voters, not all, but most are going to vote down ballot for that.
15 seconds each for the gentleman. What do you think, Patrick?
I think that young people are absolutely going to vote for Bob Casey. I look at the Pitt College Democrats getting an average of about 70 people per meeting, which is record highs for our organization. I feel pretty good for Casey.
And Dave, last word on this one.
I agree with Shelley completely. I think the presidential races are going to be tied to that. I think one thing is, if anybody looks anything up, they're going to see that Casey talked a lot about China and how much was invested by Dave in his business, but look how much was invested in the Green New Deal with Casey.
All righty, well, another lively discussion. I very much appreciate it. It's time to pause for another quick break. We'll be right back with some final thoughts. Stick with us. And welcome back. Thanks for watching Inside Pennsylvania Politics. You can catch us every week through the election at 11 a.m. on Thursday, streaming on CBS News Pittsburgh, and on KDKA Plus at 12:30 on Sunday afternoons, both streaming and broadcast. Thanks to our panelists, and thanks again to you for watching. Remember, our government is only as good as you make it. Be sure to vote, and have a great day, everyone.